We saw Michael Lombardi yesterday have a press conference. Michael Lombardi, the general manager of UNC football, kind of feels like he's the spokesman, like the voice of UNC football right now. Obviously, Bill Belichick is the face, and Michael Lombardi, I've listened through his entire press conference earlier today, even talked about how, Bill Belichick, the vision and philosophy of building the team from the inside out, how everything is built in Bill Belichick's message and his idea. So he doesn't really view himself as Michael Lombardi doesn't really feel himself as the voice, I guess you could say, but he kind of has become that. I mean, outside of Bill Belichick's press conference, he hasn't done anything local yet. He still goes on Pat McAfee once a week. Still see him popping up on different stuff nationally. See him in Dunkin' Donut commercials. But he hasn't done anything locally. Michael Lombardi has. We've seen Michael Lombardi on ESPN multiple times. But North Carolina has been extremely transparent about what they're building right now with football. Extremely transparent. From calling themselves the 33rd NFL team, their strength and conditioning, nutrition, the whole bit, how they're going to train and develop players. And Bill Belichick going on the recruiting show. But here's something, though, that a lot of teams are now having to experience. There's revenue sharing that colleges can now have with their athletes. They can share the revenue with them. And we've seen, based off of Bill Belichick's contract, revenue share of $13 million for football. Then you add the collectives and stuff into the mix too. So there's still other NIL opportunities that are going to be out there. Well, how do you allocate money to these players? How does this team, how does a program, a school decide that? It changes the game. Michael Lombardi discussed how allocating dollars to players and having a system for distributing money to players.
In any system, you have to have any monetary value. You have to have a system, right? And so, if you're a starter on the team, there's going to be a certain value placed on what level of starter you are. That's why you have to have a grading system. You just can't arbitrarily say, "I like this guy, I like that guy." We're not picking fruit here. You have to have a grading system. And so, when the grade reflects what you pay.
Okay, well, then how much? How much? Michael Lombardi continued talking about assigning worth dollar amount to players is no different than what you would see in the NFL.
It's the amazing thing. Everybody says this guy's a first rounder or this guy's a second rounder. Well, that's insignificant. A first rounder makes X and a second rounder makes Y. So what you're doing is valuing the player, right? When you use those terms, when they do it on television, they don't value the player because it's not their money. But when you're picking in real life, you're saying, I'm going to give this guy a guaranteed contract for 5 years. He's worth X. Is that talent worth that? It's the same thing you're doing in high school on a lower level. So you have to be able to do that. You have to say this guy, so if a starter, he starts for 3 years on your program, he's going to make significant money. If a guy starts 1 year, he's going to make a little bit. The next year, he's got to prove himself again. Because every year, every player could leave. And so you have to have some kind of way, or else you have anarchy. You don't have any system. And that's why you have to have a grading system. That's why you have to grade your players every single day. You have to grade every player so you know what you're losing and what you have to expect to get back.
There's a lot that goes into this. How do you grade? How do you evaluate? Well, if let's say, for example, if a starter gets hurt, and a backup comes in and backup performs well, are you going to pay that person more based on that? Hey, I started more games than that guy. Why is he making more money than me? So you are introducing something, again, an element that we really have not seen before when you're actually are sharing revenue, the school paying that player, making a dollar allotment for this particular starter or assigning a monetary value to a player coming out of high school, a kid in college. We have not seen that fully yet. Yes, there's the NIL stuff, but generally that is offered up front. Now, it doesn't mean a player can't earn that over time, But this is an actual school saying, hey, we have X amount of dollars we can spend. This is how much we think you're worth. Here's the dollar amount. Because now you're getting into part of the recruiting battle. Guess what? The face of Bill Belichick and this whole 33rd NFL team stuff doesn't make a lot of sense. Or, I mean, it does make a lot of sense, but it doesn't carry as much weight if Alabama or Georgia calls me and they offer me more money from the get-go. I mean, gosh, how many Georgia players were starting on defense in the Super Bowl for the Philadelphia Eagles? A lot, to answer the question. So that is something that I think Michael Lombardi, Bill Belichick, and all these schools have to navigate is how much monetary value are you giving a player that's coming in? Because there's a highly touted 5-star out there that's going to say, hey, you know what? This program where I know if I go there and play, I'm going to get looked at in the NFL if I go play there. Well, they're offering me $2 million from the get-go. What are you offering me? And also wonder, like, when does that monetary value have to be assigned? Because if there's a position battle, does a team say, hey, well, we're actually paying that guy more, so we need to start that person? You see that in the NFL. You see that in sports everywhere. Why is this person playing over that guy? Well, they're paying him more. That's why. That's just how sports work. I really am intrigued to see long-term how this is going to shake out. We just fully don't know. We think we might see certain things. We just don't fully know. Sure, there's a quarterback out there. That's a premium position. They're going to be assigned a lot higher dollar amount. That's just how the NFL works. It's a premium position. Offensive tackle, premium position. Defensive line, more premium position. Safety, not so much. Which I think I was talking to Chris Lee and I for our podcast, Panthers Playbook, which you can catch on 99.9 The Fans YouTube page. We actually talked to Jordan Reed of ESPN, who's one of their NFL draft experts, does a lot of scouting of college players in preparation for the NFL draft. And we had a conversation about there's been a lack of a better term, a deterioration in certain positions in the sport of football. Like, for example, the safety position in the NFL. It's hard to find good ones. But you also, talking with Jordan Reed about this, he mentioned how in college, it's hard for college coaches. And Chris Lee brought this up too. College coaches talking about it's hard to get safeties at the college level because so many guys either want to play a position where they get the ball, wide receiver, quarterback, running back. No one really wants to play defensive back. And in high school, if you're a really good defensive back, you're probably playing corner because you're going to match up one-on-one against another team's top safety. So there's no one really developing to play safety, even in college, which is making things even harder to find in the NFL. It's harder to find really good safeties in the NFL. But there's been such a devalue of that position. You don't see a lot of safeties drafted high. You see corners drafted high. You don't see a lot of safeties drafted high. So I'm also wondering as well, if I'm a player, like, is there going to be, if I see more money at corner or more money at receiver or running back or whatever it might be, if I see more money at those positions, well, I'm going to train myself to be the best I can at those positions, which only further deteriorates other positions in the NFL. Like off-ball linebacker has been devalued in the NFL, but yet teams that have really good ones have great defenses. Go figure. But there's been a devaluation, or those positions that be devalued, I should say. Anyway, interesting thought. I'm curious how that's going to impact a school like Carolina, State, Duke, that all have this money to share now that they can openly share. You're going to see that trickle down even further.